Today, we're going to explore a topic that seems to be touching nearly every industry, every workplace, and increasingly every part of our daily lives. What is that? Artificial intelligence. But this conversation is not just about what AI can do. It's about what AI assumes, what it values, what it misses, and what happens when powerful technologies are deployed into environments they were not designed to understand. Welcome, or hopefully welcome back to Reliability Matters. I'm so glad you're here. My guest today is Dr. James Maisiri, an AI researcher and writer whose work focuses on responsible AI, digital transformation, education, labor markets, and the societal impact of emerging technologies. His work has been featured through organizations and publications including UNESCO, Mail and Guardian, and many others, and his message is both simple and profound. AI is not neutral. In one of his 3 TEDx talks, Dr. Maisiri said, if Africa does not shape AI, then AI will shape Africa. While his work often focuses on African communities and institutions, the lesson is much broader. Every industry, including electronics manufacturing, needs to think carefully about how we adopt AI, what assumptions are built into these systems, and how we validate their use before trusting their output. In electronics reliability, we often say that context matters. Materials, environments, residues, humidity, temperature, field conditions, and use cases all influence performance. Today, we'll ask whether the same is true for AI. I'm not really sure how much of this conversation will tie in directly to reliability, but it's a fascinating subject nonetheless. So let's see where it takes us.
Welcome to Reliability Matters, a podcast for the electronic assembly industry. Each episode covers topics related to reliability, best practices, and environmentally responsible assembly techniques, with insights from experts across the electronic assembly industry. Now, here's your host, Mike Conrad.
Hi, James. Welcome to the program. I'm excited to have this conversation with you today.
Hi, Mike. How are you? Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, as I'm excited that you're here as well. Just so my audience knows where each of us are, I'm in California. You are not. Tell me where you are at this very moment.
I'm all the way in Zimbabwe right now, on the
Yeah,
other side of the world.
the other
I'm
side
in
of the earth,
Zimbabwe in a
yes.
city called, yeah, Bulawayo. I'm usually based in Joburg, but right now I'm just in between places, so traveling. So I'm in Zimbabwe right now.
There you go. You've said that if Africa, and this is a great title for a TED Talk or a podcast. If Africa does not shape AI, then AI will shape Africa. Tell me what that statement means to you. Where did that come from? What is the concern that statement represents?
Yes, so right now, AI is the big craze that everyone is trying to adopt, even in African countries. In fact, in African countries, they believe that AI is going to help them leapfrog forward economically and catch up to the global north. But my question was, my thinking was most AI systems globally are created in Western societies, right? So China and America has 90% of the computing power globally that feed into AI. So Africa just imports these technologies that are trained in Western societies, and we expect that the the solutions that these technologies were created for that side will be the exact same. Will have the exact same results within the African context. And as I was looking around, there were adverse consequences of just adopting AIs from the global north within the African context. And it was just a warning to the rest of Africa that we shouldn't be importing these technologies. We need to be creating our own AI systems with our own training of the African context to solve our problems. Because if we just import it here, we'll create more problems than that we can even think of or to like realize.
Yeah, I think a lot of that's an insight I hadn't really thought of before now. Because AI can do many things. a lot of people use AI for math formulas. For example, if I ask AI, what is 2 plus 2, I'm going to get 4. And nowhere around the world would 4 be an inappropriate answer, right? When there's
Yeah.
quantitative data that AI produces, it is probably accepted universally as a truth, no matter whether you're in South Africa or Ghana or wherever, or Mississippi or Canada or anywhere in Europe. People can agree that that's an accurate answer. It's outside of quantitative data, I think, that you're referring to. And give me some examples, or an example, I guess, for the sake of time. I know you can probably come up with 1,000 examples of where Chat GPT or Claude or any of the, AI in general. I tend to say Chat GPT is just kind of the poster child. That's like Coca-Cola when I'm referring to cola. But give me an example where AI might, based on Western training and Western norms,
Yeah.
misapply some maybe advice to someone in Africa.
So to be fair, even if they wanted to train on African data, it is also very difficult to do so because a lot of African culture and the way and education is actually oral. We don't.
Right.
There's not a lot of literary text. ChatGPT was trained on the internet in English. Africa has diverse amount of languages, and it's passed on from generation to generation. There are efforts from African scholars to try and digitalize a lot of African oral culture, but we still have a long way to go. We are trying hard. We still have a long way to go. Hopefully, in 3 or 4 years, we can say, another report. There are also stakeholders that would be suspicious of foreign companies coming into communities' sacred places, collecting data that they won't be able to control, right? It will be owned under ChatGPT, and how the value share and the profit of that is distributed is often in the African context not in our favor. So there's also there are gatekeepers, but we do encourage collaborations with such partners, with African universities, African institutions. There are a lot of institutions doing work in partnership with Google and ChatGPT that are trying to solve this problem.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I think you are correct. I can completely understand the scale, the massive scale of trying to memorialize in text form a culture that goes back thousands of years that to today still has a lot of oral traditions to pass on from generation to generation. And then in one country there might be numerous different nuances to all those different practices and things
Yeah.
like that, where some Western cultures are a little bit more homogeneous than we've kind of blended, for better or for worse. We've kind of blended into this average culture with a few nuances here and there. I'm thinking of just the United States, for example. The Southern culture might be a little
Yeah.
bit different than the Northeastern culture, than the Western culture, but from a 30,000-foot view, it's pretty similar, right? It's pretty easy for an AI learning tool to learn the nuances of that. But
I mean, if I can just add that. Oh, sorry, continue.
yeah, no, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that, like, for example, in United States, English is a predominant language, so everyone can train and use AI within English. In South Africa, for example, there are 12 official languages
Wow.
in that one country. It's even worse if you go to Eastern Africa, right? Just an hour away, there's a different language and a different culture. So yeah, it's quite an uphill to
Yeah.
make sure we train the AIs for specific contexts.
In addition to the reference of AI integration into Africa, is it safe to expand the warning? For example, is it safe to say, if we don't shape AI, AI will shape us? this doesn't just apply to Africa, right? The point you're making seems to be able to be applied, across the globe, in where the conditions are similar, where oral traditions are passed down orally, and not a lot of manuscripts and things like that.
Definitely. I think if you're not China or America, this message should hit to the heart, whether it's India, whether it's other places where you're just not the ones who are training these language models for your context. You're building models on top of ChatGPT, or on top of Gemini, or on top of other AI systems that are foreign to you. And whatever data you do produce, you don't necessarily have full control or sovereignty over it. So it's a warning for a lot of places across the world, I would say.
In your TEDx talk, first of all, I'm a little bit jealous. That's one of my bucket list things, to do a TED talk or a TEDx talk. I want to stand on that red dot at some point in my life. And you did
One
three.
day.
And you did one day, and you did three of them. In your TEDx talk, you describe how technology introduced into a rural community in Ghana helped change the cultural expectations around girls using computers. Tell me a little bit more about the background of that story, and what did that story teach you?
So it was a good friend of mine, and she was just telling me about her upbringing in her childhood, and how she could be in a classroom with 50 students, one teacher. It was just an impoverished community. And then a foreign NGO came and decided to give them a small pack laptop for each child, right, to help them to teach them computer skills to change their trajectory. And that specific um, event was very important, but because before, in her community, after school, she was expected to help her parents with informal trading. After school, she was expected to help with domestic chores and to raise her younger siblings. She was not exposed to any computers at all, despite there being an internet cafe within that community, because it was taboo to see girls doing doing anything outside domestic work after school. So she couldn't just go to the internet cafe. So when this NGO came and dropped the educational laptops, the community for that the initiative failed, but during that process, the community got to see girls on computers and girls on laptops. And even though that initiative failed by the NGO, she could go to the internet cafe afterwards and learn how to use a computer and continue computer skills, and that's the career path that she took. So when I heard that story, it hit me that a foreign technology can come into a local community and change the culture, right? The fact that there were many laptops in that specific community and girls were now using that laptop, it changed the culture's perspective for it to not be a taboo thing for girls to use laptops. And that's actually what put me in the rabbit hole down on, okay, AI is foreign. How's it changing the community here in Africa? We should investigate that and figure out what's the best way to go forward without adverse outcomes.
I think most people who watch and listen to this conversation, and you're including yourself, would agree that overcoming the taboo of women should not do anything other than clean the dishes and sweep the floor after school is not a bad thing. That's probably overall a good thing. But it still changes the culture. The culture was that way. Women in Saudi Arabia can't drive a car. The global society might say, well, it would probably be a good thing if they do drive cars, right? Although that would result in a culture change. So I think the slippery slope here is, well, many people might think, well, girls on computers studying is a good thing. Yes, it's a cultural change, but one might consider that a good cultural change. What other cultural changes that may not be good for the community? Not all Western values are the best for every part of the world, right? So is that kind of the point you're making, that illustrating, perhaps many people would believe in a positive way, that it had a positive effect on society? I think the overall point of that anecdote is it can change society that has not changed in millennia, and it can change it
Yes.
in less than a generation. It can change it in, between birthdays, So
Yes.
is that the greater point?
Yes. Culture change is not inherently a bad thing. Some cultures can really change for the better with foreign technology. AI specifically, there's so much potential good that AI can have in African spaces, can uplift in poverty, can really, really, really assist. So culture change shouldn't be seen as inherently a bad thing. I'm just saying that when these technologies come and do change culture, we should regulate it. He said when the car was first invented, we had the first we had the first human being to die of a car accident. We didn't throw the cars. We didn't throw cars away. We just regulated it. We got licenses. We had rules on the road and traffic. And the point I'm making is that especially in developing societies, we may rush so much to uplift ourselves by just adopting these technologies without thought in our desire for change or for a better life. So it's that whatever the change is must be controlled.
Yeah. When you say AI is not neutral, are you referring mostly to bias and data, or is it deeper than that?
I'm referring to bias and data, but yeah, I'm referring to bias and data and the values that the specific AI ends up having, and the output that it ends up having. That, like explained in the previous examples in Zambia, right? It is more biased towards Western answers than it would be on this side of the context answers. It's not a neutral technology as people would imagine, as we just adopted here.
Do you think most governments and companies and institutions are moving too quickly with AI adoption?
I think, from my view and my observation, AI adoption is not necessarily done by governments, or at least from this side of the world. It's done by the people, it's done by Africans, done by the employees, it's done by organizational leaders. It feels like governments are actually trying to catch up to see what's happening, particularly on the ground, and now creating laws. Okay, we can't do this, we can't allow this, we can't regulate this, we can't allow this. And the individuals are adopting these AIs in experimental fashion without any full knowledge or awareness of what these technologies are or can do, or even that these technologies hallucinate. You know,
Yeah.
when ChatGPT was new, at a visit in Zimbabwe, and at that particular point in time, ChatGPT was banned in Zimbabwe. Like, you couldn't use ChatGPT in Zimbabwe unless if you had a VPN or
Yeah.
side things. And the students who are woke, who are awake enough to know about that, would start writing essays and submitting it, and the teachers would have no idea because they have no idea what this technology is. But they weren't even aware that the answers they were getting were hallucinations, right? So that's just an example of how quick the average person is quick to adopt this, whether it's in their companies or whatnot, without full understanding or comprehensive understanding of these technologies. And then governments are now catching up to regulate these motions. But that's not for all of Africa. I'm sure there are governments that are active, like South Africa, like your Kenya, like your Nigeria. But I would say for a lot of countries in Africa, there's still a lot of education about this technology. And
I think regulation can be a double-edged sword. I mean, clearly, artificial intelligence is so powerful, and there's already documented cases where allegedly it assisted someone in suicide advice and things like that. I mean, I agree there need to be some guardrails on it. On the other hand, that's one side of the sword. On the other side of the sword, one might say you get government regulating AI, and they may regulate it to not say anything bad about the government or any inconvenient truths in the past. Every country has them in their basement somewhere. So that's certainly going to be something that governments have to and citizens have to wrestle over. The same happened when the internet came out. How much, is the internet truly the wild, wild west? Can you put anything on the internet? If you had, 20 ways to assassinate your president, that probably will get you shut down very quickly. If
Would
you're
that be?
selling illicit drugs as e-commerce, that's probably going to get shut down pretty quickly. But at some point, when we ask the government to come in and, with their regulation pen, it may 100% be necessary in extreme cases, but we have to really now guard the guardians to make sure it's done agnostically, right? Without a political bias or a bias that would affect a certain people or, I'm thinking in other cultures where there are like caste systems, you don't want something that takes lower castes and says, no, you don't get the same access as this. So it's a slippery slope. It's not going to be an easy transition.
That's a warning that we have for African governments, right? Because they can use where democracy and elections are rigged a lot in many countries, in many countries. Voting and democracy doesn't work the same way as in the West. So there's been criticism that these AIs, deepfake cases have been used to kind of tilt the election period and the election cycles, and a lot of the average citizen may not even be aware that this is a deepfake. I mean, I see my dad falling for AI pictures all the time. He's a lot older, so it's just like it's a serious danger of how African governments who are supposed to be regulating AI will actually have been warned to potentially use these technologies, and some have used these technologies for bad, for evil, for control.
Yeah. Well, it's not limited to Africa. We've seen that here too. In the reliability world, which is the world I live in, we often talk about unintended consequences. What are some of the unintended consequences you see with AI adoption?
The automation of business decisions for different businesses that these systems have that nobody can explain or transparently understand why. So there was a case in South Africa where black-led medical practitioners would get penalized or accused for medical fraud by medical aid systems. So that means there's certain things you can't do. It means there's cash flow delays. There's serious problems that slows down these businesses within particular communities. And when an investigation was done, it turns out those decisions were automated. The medical aid companies couldn't even explain themselves why these people were disproportionately affected. All they said was the AI decided that we are not at fault. So
Interesting. So the algorithm was
yeah,
not favorable
yeah,
to certain people.
yes, the algorithm was not favorable to certain people, and I mean you see this throughout a lot of organizations. Like we know that AI HR, if they're looking at CVs and they see James or Mike or David, we would more likely get the job. But once they see local names like Nogutula, Anati, Awakiwe, that's it
Right.
like it punishes you, it penalizes you, immediately. Yeah. So
Interesting.
reliability and making sure that these systems do what they're supposed to do is important because they're actually affecting real people's lives. And they don't even know that they are, because you have to understand the algorithms, you have to understand what they do and their limits, and
What's interesting is, they call it artificial intelligence, and it seems to have adopted many of the cultural biases that humans have, right? It doesn't seem to have just been a whiz at math, Excel charts and trends and data analysis. It seems to have the same cultural biases and expectation biases and things like that the human programmers who fed it all the information must have had. It's interesting for an artificial intelligence system to somehow favor a Western name over a non-Western name. Where'd that come from? I mean, that must have come from old literature, because it's devoured everything. And I can just imagine a lot of the stuff, Shakespearean days and even before and even after, were filled with the culture of the day, right? Today we judge it harshly because we are in a different culture. Then it was the normal. But I don't know if it picked up what the norm was. I don't know if it really factors all that in. It's that was then, this is now, right? That's a whole separate training. Electronic manufacturing relies heavily on data inspection, process control, and decision making. And I know this is not what you stood on the red dot on the TEDx stage to talk about here, but where do you see AI offering the greatest potential value in for business, any kind of business? I'm in the electronics manufacturing space, but it really, the question applies broadly. Even though it can be culturally biased, even though it has those faults that may result in a lot of caution when using AI in non-Western society. There are manufacturing companies in Africa. There are manufacturing companies around the world who can benefit from AI. Where do you see AI providing the greatest potential value in that type of context?
So I think from my perspective, from the African's perspective, it will be agriculture, in the agricultural sector. Agriculture is a primary employer for especially for sub-Saharan Africa. And we're hearing these amazing stories. If your viewers were to Google Alex Madeira, I could be saying that wrong, but Umlazi AI. So essentially, it's a community in Malawi. They suffer through cyclones, ridiculous rains. And this AI app, helped by the government, trained or somewhat trained within that specific context, advises these farmers with no education, right, on how to farm best, how to handle these cyclones. So you're talking about people with zero education now all of a sudden having a PhD guiding systems, AI guiding systems by their side. And if you Google that story, he tripled his triple may not be the exact amount, but I'm saying he made a huge, big difference of productive output, helped send his kids to school, all because of the advice that that particular AI said, like, don't plant this, don't do this, do this here, of this weather. So it was extremely helpful. It's like having a 150 IQ points uplift advisor by your side. You even hear these stories of not necessarily the story in Kenya, not necessarily someone who went for formal schooling. They learned about technology by themselves online, and they developed an AI app to help farmers there take a picture on their mobile phones of leaves, and that AI system will look at their leaves to see what pests are there, when to spray, how to spray. And she, as an entrepreneur, has started a whole new business there, helping local communities there. So it's such a big positive change as well. Even in spaces such as education, right, where STEM teachers in certain countries like Zimbabwe are lacking, where students are 50 of them in one classroom, AI tutors have a potential promise to solve that teacher shortage crisis. So there's a lot of positive factors that these technologies can bring onto the continent.
Yeah, very good. We often talk, this is kind of a very long question here, so bear with me. We often talk about AI's social and cultural impacts. That's what we've done so far today. And you've done a lot of work in that area. But I'd like to bring this conversation into a more technical environment, just for a moment. In fields like electronics manufacturing, AI may be used to analyze quantitative data. We talked about that earlier. Inspection results, process trends, defect rates, reliability data, predictive maintenance information, and so on. It seems to be very good at that qualitative task. When AI, however, is applied to seemingly objective numerical data, are there still risks or negative effects that we should be aware of? And for example, can AI create false confidences, hide flawed assumptions, misinterpret incomplete data, or cause people to rely just too heavily on recommendations that they don't fully understand? I know that was a very long question. I don't even know if you remember the beginning of it, but what's your take on that?
Yes, yes. I think it does. I think I get what you're saying. I think it does. It still has that problem with where when it gives an answer, it can have some subjective variances of what that answer is or what that particular answer means. As said in the South African example, where of quantitative data, it decided that this particular business is worthy of being penalized, and which happen to be practitioners of color, right? So that subjectively affected their ways of lives and the way they're doing, despite that, despite the AI, using quantitative data to make their decisions. Same thing with financial loans industry, as stated earlier. The AI is not necessarily being biased on purpose; it's doing its proper calculations, but the outcome is subjectively harmful.
What does responsible AI actually look like in practice?
So, in my view, responsible AI looks like when you deploy the AI, you have to do some research and investigation on how that AI affects the community. Responsible AI also includes the data around it, investigating the data around it, AI data audits, right? Is there representation of within the AI data before you unleash it to that specific community or that specific context of the problem that you're trying to solve? More often than not, what I see this side is there's an adoption of AI. There's no investigation of what that technology does to those particular people. And we only really find out that, maybe there's something wrong there when there's already been damage done or there's already been some effects that has happened to individuals' lives. So the responsible AI right now, the conversation is about training it in the back end, but I would like to add the front end that, yeah, okay, after everything is done, after you fixed everything, we need to empirically test and empirically see that the outcomes that you foresaw are actually the outcomes that are occurring within the ground.
You've discussed AI's effect on labor markets. Do you see AI mostly as a job replacement technology, a job transformation technology, or both?
So to answer you, it's a mixed bag on how AI affects the labor market. But what I can say is the difference between the African context and the Western context is that you guys have great social support, right? When COVID happened, there were payouts that were happening to support families. You guys have free healthcare. You guys have like the great social support where if there's job loss of some sort. In comparison, Africa does not. Like Zimbabwe, for example, does not have like you're really on your own. So we need to think more carefully about job displacement because it may hurt us much more. Um, you have much more of a safety net than we do. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my wife worries a lot out loud to me about all the job losses that AI is going to do. I think she has where I am impressed by the power of AI and concerned about the power, both. I can see like any new technology, it has the power for good, it has the power for evil. But I'd like to look at the good side. And the common mantra right now is, thousands, millions, whatever, of people are going to lose their job over AI. which may or may not be accurate. Probably it's closer to accurate. However, this is the same conversation going on for a couple hundred years. At the beginning of the when electricity was produced, before that, when the steam engine came out, the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, everyone talked about, we're all going to lose our jobs, right? Because these things will be automated. When electricity was discovered and harnessed to create power to run machines, that was the end of civilization as we knew it in terms of the working man and woman. When computers came out, now we're in my lifetime, right? When personal computers came out, first when industrial computers came out, then when personal computers came out, same concern. We're all going to lose our jobs. There'll be no accountants left. Everything's going to be numbers. George Orwell, 1984, all that stuff. And then when the internet came out, that was a game changer. And now AI is the latest, although probably on the more impactful side, for sure. But to me, I've heard this song before. We're all going to panic.
It's been playing for centuries.
It's exactly. As soon as someone figured out how to start a fire more easily than rubbing two sticks together, that was going to change the world, right? In terms of job losses and all that. But people who were putting horseshoes on horses when Henry Ford came out with that Model T, back in Detroit, they're like, well, there goes our jobs, right? And they were right. But then we create other jobs. So in that context, I'll ask you, what skills should today's workforce develop to remain relevant in an AI-shaped future? We know it's coming.
Sure,
it's here.
I just wanted to comment on that before, though. I wanted to say, you're 100% right. In every single technology, there's always a protest of some sort. And every single time, the world gets much better by these technologies. And just because a technology takes a job does not inherently mean that it's bad. So I did some work in Grahamstown a couple years ago. This is before the AI stuff, where I was looking at women in the chili value chain. And her job was to touch chilies and the chemicals to it. And as I was speaking to an interviewer, her skin was done. Her skin of her hand was completely falling apart. And she's old. This is an old mama. We call them gogos this side. And I remember thinking, no human being should be doing this work. A robot of some sort should be doing this work. And of course, the critic will say, what about the mama's income? I do think the government should be able to reassign her back into society somewhere else. But she should not be giving up her body parts. So the displacements of jobs are not inherently bad. And there are scholars that it's called post-labor theory. Your viewers can look it up. That showcase that society can completely function outside of the way we understand capitalism now, even if AI and robotics completely take out every single job. And it may be a net positive to do so. I can send you the name of the head thinker of this, and maybe you can put it on the screen. His name escapes me. I think it's Prof. David. His name escapes me now. But if you look at his work, it may not. The destruction of jobs is not inherently a bad thing. It's just the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
If handled wise.
It's an evolution. Yeah, it's an evolution. We used to do. Doctors used to do bloodletting with leeches and things like that. We don't do that anymore. It's just it's the same but different. It's just there are certain things that come out that are going to be certain technologies that are evolving that are going to be more or less impactful on the job market. This one might be more, but certainly when we get to the other side of it, 50 years into AI, we're going to find it humorous, the panic that we see now, right? Just like when the steam train first was introduced, there were medical professionals who believed that we had to limit the speed of the train to 30 or so miles per hour because the human body cannot handle speeds in excess of that. It will damage our internal organs. And, that obviously was, as we would say, an old wives' tale,
Well,
right?
I was wrong.
It's not medically accurate, nor was it based on any medically, proven principles, but
Yeah,
it was a theory by prominent, educated people. So,
people.
yeah, I think we just have to factor all that in. What advice would you give to technical leaders who are excited about AI but want to avoid blindly adopting it? What would you do? You have a manufacturing company, James, and your staff is like, we got to use AI. Everyone's using AI. We're the only one not using AI. What would you do as a leader of that company? What guardrails or safeguards or due diligence would you put in first?
I'll definitely hire somebody who's much smarter than me. I mean, you are in that context, you're very entrepreneurial. You manage to um, find a product, build a manufacturing factory, and sell it to the market. But you have to understand that that may be your own, that is the ceiling of your world. Don't try and just adopt technologies because you've been told by a salesman. You're gonna have to bring in someone who has studied governance and AI framework to create a policy and a governance framework within your particular company. You have to don't do it yourself. Is essentially what I'm saying. Get expert advice for your particular context, or you might find yourself in a very bad lawsuit that was more expensive. It's actually more expensive than just adopting AI and going
Yeah,
blindly.
yeah.
Is is
That's
because I think it's very context driven.
sure, of
I'm
course.
skeptical. I'm skeptical to give a blanket answer if
Right.
that makes sense.
In our particular industry, we have two words that are said to answer most questions. It's almost to the point where it's a joke. And the answer to almost every question for our industry is it depends. Right?
It depends.
It depends, right? So it depends on a lot of factors. What's next for you, Dr. James Maisiri? Where now you have your PhD, you've stood on a TEDx stage 3 times, you're well published. What is your future like?
So right now the project I'm working on is looking at how AI is affecting the African education and the work experience of teachers within the African context. I think I'm going to be busy with that for at least the next 12 months, I would say. I'm thinking heavily on AI governance in Africa as well. I would say we're all at the edge of thought, so we're all tripping and falling in Africa for the African context and we're figuring it out. So I would like to be part of that journey within the next 12 months as well. I still will remain with the University of Johannesburg in South Africa. But I really do hope, though, that I come to the West and also experience life there at some point in time for a year or two. I'd like to study there and also visit you, Mike, in America and see how it goes.
I would assume within University of Johannesburg and like most major universities, there are exchange programs where you can do a fellowship or something at
Yeah.
another university somewhere around the world. Is that usually an
Yes.
opportunity
Yes.
that's
Yes.
available to you? Okay. Well,
It is. It is.
UCLA, USC, those are good Southern California places to go.
Good.
So I will invite you. I'll be the ambassador for Southern California. I'll be happy to show you around. But yeah, that would be great if you could do that. What's besides the educational environment, the university environment, any desire to get into industry outside of that academia, or are you an academia kind of guy?
I'm an academia type of guy. If I'm not in academia, I do keynotes. I do a lot of. I'm a
Yeah.
professional keynote speaker, and a lot of my keynotes are geared towards industry as of late. Um, so those are the two things I think I'm building right now. I've never imagined going full industry and completely leaving academia. Not that I'm against it. It's just I'm happy where I am now. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm happy with research.
I think the answer to that question is it depends, right? There we go. It depends. To my viewers and listeners, if you would like to get more information on Dr. James Maisiri and the work he's done, including links to the TEDx talks, they will be in the show notes. If you're watching this on YouTube, look down here where it says see more, and that information will be there, as well as to his website where you can get information on his keynote speaking. Very interesting topic. And as I promised at the beginning in the intro, I'm not sure how much of this was going to relate directly into reliability, but I do think it's definitely ingredients for thought and to think about the overall application of AI. It may be solving a particular problem in your inspection system. You may be able to do some line balancing using AI and other tools, but it has a much broader application than that. So it's just worth opening our eyes and seeing how this very powerful technology and impressive technology and potentially game-changing technology can land on different people in different parts of the world with maybe an outcome less predicted in every context. So it's just good to know that type of stuff. Dr. James, thanks for spending pretty much the last hour with me. I really appreciate it. The concerns you voice are something I had never really thought of before. I think most people probably haven't really thought of it unless you're on that side of the world and seeing the implications of it. So thanks for bringing that to the public light. Continued success in your academic work. And if you're ever in Southern California, let me know.
I'll hit you up, Mike. Thank you.
Hit me up.
Very much.
Hit me up. I'm your man in Southern California. All right. Thank you very much for being my guest.
Sure. Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you to the viewers for watching.
And that's a wrap on another episode of Reliability Matters. Thanks for being here. Whether you listened on your favorite podcast app or watched on YouTube, I really appreciate you being here. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future episodes. And a big thanks to PCB Chat from the Printed Circuit Engineering Association at pcbchat.com and Ascendo Reliability at reliability.fm for syndicating this show. Got a question or an idea for a future episode? We'd love to hear from you. Visit reliabilitymatterspodcast.com. Thanks again for being here. I truly appreciate all of you. Until next time, keep learning, keep doing it right, and remember, reliability matters. I'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Thanks for listening to the Reliability Matters podcast. Join us on the second and fourth Tuesday of each month for new episodes of Reliability Matters.